can't be a druid!
Why not?
Don't you know what druids are? What they do?
Listen, druids do the lowest DPS in the game, and they just watch animal porn all day. They're a bunch of losers, all of them.
Hello everybody, Crow here, on Vilebranch, only found on titansleague.org. I'm here today for the Druid overview. Let's jump right in. So starting off, we have our look at our base abilities. Bark Skin, Entangling Roots, Fairy Fire, Hibernate, Innervate, Moonfire, Nature's Grasp, Starfire, Thorns, Wrath. Aquatic form, Bash. Bear form, it's been slightly nerfed because of the stamina increase. On Vilebranch, the amount of stamina you get from gear is 20 per point instead of 10. Cat form will give you 1 attack power per point of agility with no bonuses. Claw. Clobber, a revenge type of ability, only available in bear form. Cower. Dash. Demoralizing Roar. Enrage. Fairy Fire Feral. Feline Grace. Ferocious Bite. Growl. Lacerate. Maul. Pounce. Prowl. Rake. Ravage. Resurgence, a custom ability that allows you to restore 30% of your maximum HP over 4 seconds in animal form, with a 1.5 minute cooldown. Rip. Shred. Swipe Bear. Tiger's Fury. Track Humanoids. And Travel form. In Restoration, we have Cure Poisons, Healing Touch, Mark of the Wild, Regrowth, Rejuvenation, and Revive. Let's go ahead and jump into talents. So here we have Starlight Wrath, reduces the cast time of Wrath and Starfire by half a second. Emerald Attunement allows you to have up to a 100% chance to gain 100% bonus Spirit after killing a target that yields experience or honor, and for this duration, you will regenerate 30% of your mana while casting. This lasts about 15 seconds. This is great when you're in BGs or if you're in dungeons. Going from mob kill to mob kill, or player kill to player kill, this will help you restore your mana bar. This is because the Boomkin, even with a bunch of other talents, has a lot of trouble holding on to mana. Improved Moonfire. This will increase the damage and critical strike chance of your Moonfire by up to 10%. Balance of Power increases the chance to hit with all spells by up to 4%, and reduces the spell damage that you take by 6. Moonglow reduces the mana cost of your Moonfire, Starfire, Starfall, Wrath, Healing Touch, Nourish, Regrowth, and Rejuvenation spells by up to 9%. This is a nice flat mana reduction for all your healing and balance attacks. Nature's Majesty. This will increase the critical strike chance of Wrath, Starfire, Nourish, and Healing Touch by up to 4%. Celestial Focus will reduce the pushback suffered from casting Starfire, Hibernate, and Hurricane by up to 70% and give you a total of 3% spell haste. This is useful for resisting your Starfires and getting a whole bunch of spell haste so that you can cast your spells faster. Nature's Splendor will increase the duration of Moonfire, Regrowth, Rejuvenation, and Insect Swarm by about 1 tick each point. So for 2 points you get 2 additional ticks. Brambles increases the damage from your Thorns and Entangling Roots by up to 75%, and gives a chance for your Bark Skin to daze a target. Additionally, your Entangling Roots has a 34, 67, 100% chance to silence the target for 3 seconds. This does have diminishing returns on players. Insect Swarm, everybody knows what this is, it's just nature damage over time. Improved Insect Swarm will allow you to increase the damage done by your Wrath to targets affected by Insect Swarm, and the critical strike chance of Starfire on targets affected by Moonfire. Nature's Grace will allow you when you critically strike with a non-periodic spell to increase your casting speed for about 3 seconds by 20%. This is a significant number that will last a couple of wraths or for one starfire, but this will increase the cast time, or make it faster. Lunar Guidance will increase your spell power by up to 12% of your total intellect. Nature's Reach increases the range of balanced spells and your Fairy Fire Feral ability by up to 20% and reduces the threat generated by balanced spells by 30%. This is used to extend your range and reduce the threat that you have so that you don't pull aggro off the tank. Moonkin Form. This increases your armor and reduces damage taken while stunned by 30%. Additionally, while in Moonkin form, you give your entire party an 5% increased spell critical strike chance. Also, your single target spell criticals will allow you to regenerate 5% of your total mana while in Moonkin form. While in Moonkin form, you can't cast heals or resurrection spells. The act of shapeshifting into it or out of it will free you from polymorph and movement impairing effects, such as roots, slows, and snares. You can improve your Moonkin form for 2 points, and this will increase the amount of haste by 2 to 4%, and grant you specifically up to 30% of your spirit as additional spell damage. This is great for giving yourself a bunch of extra haste, along with your party, to make them a little faster. Also, an extra bunch of spell damage for your spirit does not hurt. Owlkin Frenzy. Attacks done to you while you're in Moonkin form will give you up to a 20% chance to go into a frenzy. This will increase the damage that you deal by 20%, cause you to be immune to pushback effects, and restore 2% of your base mana every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. This is good for PvP combat, or in situations where you're soloing and you're getting hit a whole bunch. This will help you keep your mana high, and keep you casting spells without having to get pushed back. Dream State will now regenerate up to 20% of your intellect every 5 seconds in mana, even while casting. Finally, towards the bottom of the tree, we have Earth and Moon. Your Wrath and Starfire spells have a 100% chance to apply the Earth and Moon effect. This increases the spell damage taken by the target by up to 12%, and reduces the healing by 30% for 12 seconds. This will also increase your spell damage passively by up to 6%. Shooting Stars. Your Moonfire and Insect Swarm's periodic damage gives you a 4% chance to cause your next Starfire spell to become instantly cast. This lasts for 15 seconds. This is good because if you're balancing and juggling your Moonfire and Insect Swarm spells and keeping them ticking, you'll occasionally allow yourself to throw down a quick Starfire for free. Star Surge. This is a 2-second cast spell with a 15-second cooldown. It infuses the bolt with the power of Moon and Sun, launching a devastating blast of Spellstorm damage. Talents that affect Wrath will also affect Star Surge. This is kind of sleeper OP because things like Starlight Wrath, your Nature's Majesty, your Moon Glow, and some other abilities here will also affect Star Surge. This spell's damage is checked against the lower of your target's nature or arcane resistances. Additionally, Star Surge will always critically strike a target that is affected by your Fairy Fire, which will, in turn, either trigger your Moonkin form's mana regeneration and or your Nature's Grace. So let's see what this looks like in action. I'll go ahead and put 5 points into Starlight Wrath, Nature's Majesty, in a PvP scenario. Yeah, probably that. Insect Swarm with a bunch of extra damage for PvE content. Lunar Guidance. I think Nature's Reach is probably the better one here. Moonkin Form, Improved Moonkin Form, Dream State, Form, Shooting Stars, Star Surge. Now the cool part is you can put a bunch of points in the Feral to get a bunch of armor and some interesting stat boosts like Furor, which will give you up to a 100% chance to give you Rage in a bear form, keep all your energy in cat, but more importantly, give you 10% of your total intellect in Moonkin. Restoration, you can get Master Shapeshifter here. Increase my spell damage by 5%. And Intensity, give me mana regeneration while in combat. So, using this Moonkin build, this will allow us to push out some damage. Let's get Moonfire up here, put that down there, and give me Insect Swarm. So what I want to do is apply my dots so they keep them going. Fairy Fire, and then use Star Surge every cooldown I can. Probably using Wrath a whole bunch of my rotation until I get that instant Starfire. Or maybe a faster one with Nature's Grace here. Oh yeah, let's keep up them dots. Don't forget to do that. And get that Star Surge going. Already procced that. Get that extra Starfire in there. Because it is still a 2.8 second cast time. That's a long time. Let's keep this going. I want to proc it. As you can see, my mana is going down, but hopefully not too fast. This will keep me alive long enough to be, or keep me afloat mana-wise, while my group's killing monsters, or if I'm in a BG and people are getting player kills right and left. Nature's Grace pops, so I can throw a quick Starfire. And that's how I kind of expect people to play. If you want to, you can spam Starfire, but I think your DPS might drop off a little bit. It just feels like a long time. Especially when you can catch the that extra 20% haste at the tail end of it, where you Starfire here. So obviously when you get low mana, you can pop Innervate. That's once every 3 minutes. That's kind of a good button if the pull goes on for a little too long, I think. Let's see what it looks like if I'm spamming Starfire instead. It does a lot of damage. Well, of course it's Starfire, but you know, still. This relies on you to not be interrupted a whole bunch either. It's a lot more mana efficient, I'm noticing, though. That's always good. Oh yeah, get that Nature's Grace going. Get those quick Starfires off. Notice it's a... Oh, that's a little boost to my DPS, actually. That's pretty wild. Well, I guess what do I expect? That's a huge damage spike. Oh yeah, those auto crits. Those are nice. About 90 DPS is about where I like to be. A lot of the specs here have close to 80 to 90 DPS. With some of the top end ones coming out at 100. If it starts going to 110 territory, I tend to nerf it. And if it's like 70 to 80, I kind of buff it. I've only been able to go based on people's recordings of SCADA. Or SCADA. I don't know how you pronounce that, actually. Call me a dumb American if you want, I guess. So one of the things I do like is having the classes that consume mana actually consume mana to kind of increase the importance here of your mana potions for the alchemy class, or not class, the alchemy profession. Along with other professions that you could use in order to give you an extra bit of mana. Not intended to be able to cast, though, consistently between innervates. You're supposed to have a little bit of downtime where you're losing mana. And so even with the mana buffs, I feel comfortable with where it's at right now. This is also just in starter gear, so I'm sure people have more success later when they get more mana per second on their items. But yeah, this is going to consume a lot of mana. The DPS, though, I'll admit, is pretty good. Alright, so that was the balance Druid. Let's reset our talents and check out what feral combat looks like. Change my agility, or gear to agility. Okay. Furor will allow you to get up to 100% chance to give you rage or energy in your bear and cat forms and increase the potency of your Moonkin's intellect. Pretty standard. Feral Aggression can increase the attack power reduction by demoralizing Roar by up to 40%, and the damage caused by Ferocious Bite by 15. That is a big amount of damage. Thick Hide is pretty good for armor contribution being increased by up to 10%. And I highly advise that if you're tanking, especially so you can get Survival of the Fittest, which will increase all of your attributes by, I believe, 10%, reduces the chance you'll be critically hit by melee attacks by 6%, and increases your armor contribution from items by up to 100% on bear form. I recommend that regardless. I think I like Furor and Thick Hide better than Feral Aggression for bears, but you might want that if you're going for a cat form. On Vilebranch, you can also go bear for DPS. I'll show you that later. Brutal Impact increases the stun duration of your Pounce and Bash by 1 or 2 seconds. It will decrease the cooldown of Bash by 10 seconds. Let's pretend the situation I'm in right now. I want a PvP bear spec where I want to do a lot of damage. So I'm getting that. I'm getting Feral Swiftness because this increases your movement speed in cat, bear, or dire bear form, and increases your chance to dodge while in bear form. This will give you 15% movement speed. That's pretty big. Then you have King of the Jungle here. While using your Enrage in bear form, your damage is increased by up to 15%. And it's also pretty good for cats because your Tiger's Fury will give you a bunch of energy, and the mana cost of all your forms are reduced by 60%. I see that as a huge boon, especially with how little mana you have, even with a little bit of intellect. Primal Fury is always good, but you might not be critting a whole bunch, so I'm not really worried about the extra rage. Infected Wounds is good for control, so I'm going to go ahead and put points into that. Natural Reaction will increase your dodge rating while in bear form by up to half of your agility. Also, every time you dodge, you gain 5 rage. That's just strong. You can't just not have that. Shredding attacks for cats are pretty good. Your Shred's energy cost is reduced from 60 to 40, and it will give you a 20% chance to cause your next Ferocious Bite to ignore 30% of the target's armor. So that's really good for your finisher, which is where Feral Aggression comes in, and you get that 15% extra damage. There's a lot of good synergy there. Primal Fury as well, instead of, I don't know, maybe later you put 2 more points, but it's just really good. Every time you crit, get an additional combo point. So here's Law of the Jungle. This is really good because this increases your energy regeneration rate while under the effects of Berserk or Tiger's Fury, and your Lacerate periodic effects has a 100% chance to allow you to use Clobber without dodging for 9 seconds. Think of this like the Warrior's Taste for Blood. This will give you a bunch of extra damage, even if you're not being attacked. Leader of the Pack is a shoe-in, because it's 5 extra percent critical strike chance. And every time you do crit, you can heal yourself for 4% of your total health, and gain 8% of your maximum mana. So this keeps your mana up and gives you a little bit of health. Hungering Drells, I highly recommend. The periodic damage from your Rake, Rip, and Lacerate abilities will give you a 12% chance to enter a clear casting state. This makes the next ability you use free. Your cat, this is really good because the energy regeneration is a little horrid right now. Rend and Tear, this increases the damage done by your Maul and Shred attacks on bleeding targets by up to 20%. This also increases the critical strike chance of Ferocious Bite on bleeding targets by 25%. This has synergy with your shredding attacks and Feral Aggression to really push out all that extra Ferocious Bite damage for cat form. Lastly, we have Berserk. This is a great one. It makes you immune to fear, clears your fear effects, and gives your Mangled Bear ability to hit up to 3 targets, have no cooldown, and reduces the energy cost of all your cat form abilities by 50%. You cannot use Tiger's Fury, however, while Berserk is active. Keep that in mind. So, let's check out how much damage we can push out in bear form. I'm going to put Berserk on my hotkeys bars. Clobber down there with Fairy Feral for sure. Demoralizing Roar. Feral Charge Bear. Then you want your lacerate. Lacerate's going to do a lot of your damage. Your maul is too. Resurgence is great to keep you alive. I think bear swipe is really good. Okay. So let's begin the fight with our enrage. Enrage will allow us to have a bunch of extra rage. Boom. Now let's run in and immediately start getting lacerate going. Now lacerate going, boom, we get that proc that allowed us to clobber the target. A little extra armor penetration here with the fairy fire going on. Looks like we just crit. Boom, that clobber. It's like 100 damage. We are on the lower end of our DPS right now, but that's okay. Normally you get a bunch of extra rage when you're being hit in bear form, so that will change. I will say it feels a little unusually low though, so maybe I'll fix that with something else. Oh geez, here we go. Only pushing 40 DPS, it's not that great. But you can kind of see here that 60s to 100 it's not something to sniff at here. Especially if you're against people in starting gear when they have like 700 HP. That 200 crit with that clobber is obnoxiously strong. And of course, because they're bleeding, which is also a lot of damage, that ignores armor, then boom. That's like 160 damage. That's an insane burst. I don't care if the DPS is low, this is nuts. Of course, if the target's healing them, it's fine. I think the true glory here is the ability to survive a lot of hits by taking half as much physical damage. Melee crit's pretty good too, so you're pushing all this crazy stuff going on. I believe... Okay. Maybe not. I think we're supposed to have Savage Fury though for the absorb shields. Also, I thought Mangle was a baseline ability. It might not be. I'll have to go back and check. But that's what Berserker's for. It's for being able to spam Mangle. It's really good for cat form because it halves the energy cost of all your abilities in general. Let's go ahead and reset our talents. And go into cat build. So I think Feral Aggression is probably better here. And then Feral Instinct is good. So let's do that to avoid being detected while prowling and increase our Pounce's stun. I think Charge with King of the Jungle and Primal Fury makes sense. Affected wounds to slow with shredding attacks. Leader of the pack, Law of the Jungle, Hungry Jowls. Get that Rendered Tear, go with Berserk. Huh. I don't know about that. Resto sounds pretty good. Especially because Enrage. But Naturalist might be the better one. Increases all physical damage you deal. Pretty solid. You can also put points in a Mark of the Wild, I guess. Okay. So I think this is going to be my cat build. And I'll go ahead and grab my cat abilities like Berserk, Claw, Fairy Fire, Feral for sure. Gonna grab Feral Charge Cat. Gonna grab Ferocious Bite. Rake and Ravage, of course. I like Prowl. Pounce. Rip. You don't want your bleeds. The uptime of your bleeds needs to be maximized for the build to really shine. And Shred is probably going to be a lot of your damage from behind the target. So, let's see what this looks like in practice. We Prowl, go around the enemy here. In a PvP scenario, I'm probably going to Pounce. And then get my Rake up to cause them to bleed. shred from behind, and then push in with the rip for extra pressure. Renew the rake when it gets low. Then boom, Tiger's Fury, shred a couple times. Ferocious Bite for a whole bunch. And that DPS, as you can see, is around 100 with that burst. So let's go ahead and do it again. Keep the bleeds ticking. Hit from behind a whole bunch. Wait till that goes up some. Hit it with the rip. Get that rake again. And then I'm going to wait for my energy to come back up. So I'm going to lose a little DPS here. But I'm doing that because I'm going to hit Berserk and half the cost of my abilities. All of a sudden, got everything ticking. Alright. Boom. Ferocious Bite for a whole bunch there. And so you get these burst spikes you can deal with Cat that people won't expect. They feel like they come out of nowhere. But, in turn, your DPS is a little lower than the other classes. And so you kind of have to deal with that. Overall, it looks like without Mangle, this works pretty well. I'll have to retool your Berserk ability to decrease, or work with the Mangle effect with Maul instead. Have that hit 3 targets with no cooldown. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it introduces the rage cost for your abilities. One of the abilities that was in the early version of Vilebranch, however, was Pulverize, which was an attack that dealt damage based on the lacerate stacks on the target. It was usable in bear form. So I might put that back. Looks like the damage is fine for now, though. So let's go ahead and reset our talents again. And finally, what does Resto look like, and what is this mysterious tab here? This might be going away soon. Preservation was just a talent tree that I was going to put the Druid tanking talents into and segregate bear and cat form. But then I found out there's a lot of things that are just really integrated that I really don't want to split up. Unlike the Shaman tree, I feel that the tanking spec in the Druid class is fiercely related to cat form, if not more so, for a specific style of play. Druids are not just known for shapeshifting into one thing and staying into it, but rather shapeshifting into multiple forms. And so if anything, I might add talents later on that incentivize that. Like maybe stuff in Druid or your bear form will weaken the target, and then you can shapeshift into the cat form to finish them off. I'd rather do that than to split them up, because it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why Guardian Druids even existed in retail. Anyway, enough ranting. Restoration. Let's see. Yeah, PvP scenario, I could see Nature's Focus in general for any caster being really good, because Healing Touch and then Wrath and Entangling Roots and Nourish, Regrowth, Tranquility, Cyclone, all that stuff gets that extra pushback resistance by 70%. Improved Mark of the Wild's probably always going to be good, so why not? You're always going to want Intensity. I think 50% mana regeneration is too absurd not to get. In a PvP scenario, I could see Subtlety being picked, but in general, I feel like Naturalist is really strong because it adds 10% crit with your Healing Touch, and that's too big to ignore. Swift Mend, of course. I like Improved Rejuvenation, so I'm going to put points into that. Increased Spirit's always good too, by the way. Nature's Bounty and Living Seed. I'm never not going to get those. Life Bloom. This is scaled for level 19 pretty well. And then you can put points in the Gift of the Earth Mother, which will increase the total spell haste by 10% and reduce the base cooldown of Life Bloom by 10%. So you can Life Bloom people a whole bunch. This also gives you access to Tree of Life form at the bottom of the tree. This just reduces your mana costs by 20%, gives you 6% additional healing on top of everything, and gives you access to restoration spells, Innervate, Barkskin, Nature's Grasp, and Thorns, and a Shapeshift form for your healing, so that you can get out Polymorph and movement pairing effects. You could put points into other things like Emerald Attunement. I don't see why not if you're doing BGs for like a BG spec. Balance of Power is good for bear tanks, but you could also pick that for your healing spec. Or you can go for a hybrid, I'm sure. I like that. I like the idea of Moonglow to reduce the costs. And I have 1 extra point. I could probably toss into improved bark skin. Hell, I might choose that over a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, actually, I would take that with instead of Moonglow. I'd have 4 points. I go 1, 2, 3, 4 with the Empowered Rejuve and the improved bark skin. But I'm sure there's other stuff you can take for like armor or something else. So let's pretend I did that instead. Maybe get brambles, who knows? But with this spec, you basically do what you imagine you would always do. You grab Healing Touch, Life Bloom, your Regrowth, and Rejuve with Swift Mend, and you apply as many hots as you can to as many targets as you can. And what this does is gives people a rolling amount of healing while in the thickest of battle. You can kind of see here as it ticks. It's a whole bunch here. And when you critically strike, that Living Seed effect is no joke. It gives you a whole bunch of extra healing, 30% of the healed amount when you crit on the next attack. And so, going with the the Naturalist here to increase your healing touch by 10%, that's no joke. Because when this crits, it's gonna be a big heal. And so naturally, you're gonna have a huge amount of yes, 256 here with the Regrowth. So it's really important to get the extra crit with Nature's Bounty. Yeah, so your Healing Touch. Come on, Healing Touch. Boom. 316. 30% of that, it's going to be like 90. That's a big heal. I will say, because of the lack of stamina on my gear right now, that my health is really, really low. But the amount of healing is pretty great. And with this, I am actually regenerating a little bit of mana. You also have Innervate, keep that in mind. So that's never going to not be a thing. You can still cast that in Tree Life form. You also have Bark Skin to keep you alive for long enough to avoid being blown up. From all my gameplay of Druids, from honestly Burning Crusade forward, I would just hot and then go into bear form and try to juke people around line of sight while my hots are just ticking away. You could obviously split your gear a bit for the stamina to keep you alive in PvP. In fact, a lot of the PvP items will have a lot more stamina than offensive stats on them anyway. Along with bonus armor and bonus magic resistances to keep you alive longer. So keep that in mind. Well, unfortunately, the time has come for the end. I believe we went over everything pretty well. Itemization-wise, I think we can go over that real quick. Itemization. Spirit is a big deal on this class in Restoration and Balance. Not so much in Feral, but that's got its own can of worms. That's agility and stamina right there. Maybe a little bit of strength even for the cat form attack power bonuses. In Balance though, no, don't forget that Spirit is important too, because it gives you extra spell damage. About 3 points for Spirit will give you 1 point of spell damage. It will also give you, obviously, mana regeneration, especially if you've taken Intensity, because part of that will be converted into in-combat instead of out-of-combat regen. Emerald Attunement also scales off your Spirit, so keep that in mind. Your Spirit and Intellect are both important. Intellect for the maximum health pool, so that when you regenerate 5%, it's a 5% of a lot. Restoration, obviously Spirit's important because you can get a ton of your Intensity. In general, you can also remove yourself from combat a whole bunch by running away and then popping into cat form and prowling. And so that's kind of important too. In general, druids always have really strong both in combat and out of combat mana regeneration. So don't skimp on your stats. Spirits plays a much bigger role on this server than anywhere else. I might also go into the core and do what I did for the other classes that use attack power and change up the coefficients. So you might wind up having caster stats give you some attack power, or vice versa, in order to really push the hybrid design through. But regardless, we'll see in the future. You guys should like, comment, subscribe to this video if you have not already. Leave a comment down there. Tell me what you do like and what you don't like, and how long you mained being a druid for, if you are a druid main. Do you like what you see? Do you hate it? Tell me about it. Until next time. See ya later. See ya later. See ya. See ya. Bye.